All right, but with that, let's jump into some reacts. We'll start out with, this was only 17 hours ago. Star Citizen's new update is Breathtaking from LevelCapGaming. Breathtaking. I wonder what his frames are at Lorville, because mine were pretty rough, but it looked insane. So I'm assuming he's going to go a lot into that.
Lorville and ArcCorp look absolutely breathtaking in the latest Star Citizen update. Patch 3.19 is now available for Wave 1 testers in the PTU environment. It brings the massive Lorville rework, clouds for ArcCorp, new salvage missions, weapon and module detaching and attaching mechanics with the tractor beams. There's long...
Dude, it really does look super smoggy and polluted. It looks really solid. But so does ArcCorp now, kind of. But ArcCorp's also like a big monopolist, but it's also a big factory, too.
Claim times on spaceships, a new PvP Ghost Hollow mission, new cleanup systems for persistence, and of course, tons of bugs, which I will be discussing a bit later in the video. Now, the first thing that pretty much anyone has to check out when booting up the new patch is the Lorville update.
Is the salvage missions, right?
Lorville, being one of the first major landing zones in the game, is a dystopian Blade Runner / 1984 style city on Hurston. The first iteration of the city did look cool, but it was lacking in scale, detail, and atmospherics, all of which have been addressed with this update. Lorville 2.0 truly looks incredible, from the golden statues of the Hurston family members to the blazing hot furnaces used in weapon production, the new mega skyscrapers. It may as well be an entirely new city. I mean, it kind of is.
It is,
and it really shows the difference between CIG's early city tech and the new modern tools that the engine has. The only issue I have with it is the new no-fly zone locations. They're pretty unpredictable and they'll just pull you right out of your ship while you're doing some sightseeing. Pretty annoying, especially when the city was advertised as having new flight zones that let you take in the views and fly close to structures. But that should hopefully be an easy fix for the devs to make the city a bit more accessible. There's also cool...
Like I really thought we were getting a Hurston that was much more like Microtech. Microtech, there's just none of that.
Areas like new landing zones on top of buildings and inside buildings that look like they're primed for some spaceship racetracks. In fact, the devs alluded to a new track in the latest ISC, so that could become another awesome city track. Now, Lorville wasn't the only city to get an update. ArcCorp, a giant city planet, which first debuted about 4 years ago, has seen very few updates since its initial reveal. And with 3.19, it finally received a massive volumetric cloud layer to the entire planet. The volumetric clouds look very cool and add a ton of atmosphere. Get it? Because they're clouds and it's an atmosphere joke. Yeah. Anyway, it's kind of crazy just how much of a visual improvement these new atmospherics make, but it's a long overdue update for this planet. CIG made one of the most impressive procedurally generated worlds that I've ever seen, and then they proceed to do basically nothing with it for 4 years. Hopefully ArcCorp will start to get more mission.
Classic CIG. Put it in, say it's really good, share videos, playable now, leave it there to die and rot for 4 years until it falls apart completely, and then you have to rebuild it from scratch and talk about how game development's really hard.
Locations and relevance soon. The clouds do look a little funky at times though, with grainy lighting effects in the distance and some chunky animations when seen up close. Again, plenty of room for refinement, but the initial implementation is hands down a massive upgrade. Now, the next major change is a big improvement to salvage gameplay. There's new salvage missions from a salvage mission tab. These are pretty straightforward. You look at the contracts, find a salvage wreck that appeals to you, and then pay a fee for the salvage coordinates. You don't have to salvage the whole ship and you can abandon the mission as needed without any penalties, but it basically gives you the coordinates of a ship or multiple ships. Interestingly, it appears that these coordinates are probably used for different people as well, as there were a few different players around me salvaging the same groups of ships. But I noticed the whole material seemed to actually regenerate on the ships over time, so coming back to a previous wreck that I had more or less completely stripped, there was more material to
That's also a bug.
grab. Kind of a weird system now, not sure if that's a placeholder or what the final plan is. The other new system that's really going to open up the looting gameplay is the ability to take components off of ships with your tractor beam. There is a process, however. You need to actually go into the ship and then unlock ports so you can remove them. This is actually a new keybind that you have to set up in the menu, and it can also apparently be accessed from the pilot seat by looking around, but I couldn't seem to find it. Now, according to Reddit, if you soft kill a ship in combat, the ports will already be unlocked, so you won't have to go inside to grab weapons or modules off of the outside. But for an abandoned or derelict ship, you may need to actually sit in the pilot seat to do this. And I guess it's good.
I didn't know that either, because everything that I tried to salvage from was from a salvage mission, which is in a soft death state, sort of, but not really. It's just kind of abandoned and sitting there, because if it was soft death, it wouldn't have any gravity, and I think they all did, so...
Good in the sense that you don't want somebody to just come along and beam the weapons and components off of your ship while you're in it. Having a lock and unlock state totally makes sense. And while I didn't experience this myself, some people on Reddit are saying that there's now cargo and derelict ships that have cargo bays, and some of it can sell for quite a bit, adding massively to salvage profits. So spaceship looting is really starting to come online.
The most profitable things I've ever seen in this game in my life. It was insane. The experience that I had yesterday. It was wild. I'm sure I'll post a video about it, but one container was 220,000, just one SCU.
Rare or high-level ship components are going to be less available in shops now, making players need to acquire them from salvage or maybe even through other player vendors, a la the long-awaited Banu Merchantman, a flying merchant ship that you can dock at to buy all kinds of totally legal items. This implementation we're seeing here is the first step toward creating a player-driven economy for better gear and real need for salvaging and looting items.
Definitely
eventually, all internal components
there's so much more that needs to happen here, but this is like the thing that you have to figure out on it.
Will be removable from these ships. Their holes will be munchable for salvage, and there'll even be a more elaborate crafting system for creating all kinds of items based on the materials that you salvage. Currently, you can create multi-tools and multi-tool parts with the crafting system, but hopefully that will evolve soon. Now, the mining satchels on the prospectors can also be removed with tractor beams, alluding to multi-ship mining operations becoming a real thing soon. The idea being that miners can stay out in the asteroid fields while haulers come by to collect and transport the minables back to the station for refinement and sale. That said, this new system is still surrounded by Star Citizen jank. Removing items from ships with tractor beams is janky and somewhat unclean. There's no clear way to store ship components and cargo bays, so they all just kind of rattle around and get in the way. And while salvaging, one of my salvage crates became invisible in the cargo bay, preventing me from moving it out of the way, so I basically couldn't extract any more salvage and the whole thing stopped working. In other words, the concepts here are great, but the implementation is far from finished and super buggy, much like the entire rest of the Star Citizen experience. Now, a fairly controversial change coming to the game is the new insurance claim times on ships. CIG has increased them massively, creating higher penalties for losing your ship in the game, which I think for the long vision of the game is a great decision, making players really weigh the loss of their ships with money and time. It'll heighten all the combat and the risk-reward factors in the game.
Bro, is he trying to destroy the ship with the salvage bag?
It certainly worked wonders in EVE Online, creating extremely tense combat situations. That said, updating the game with a punishment
toxic level cap. Look at this guy.
The system now is an absolute disaster in my opinion. Claim times are not new tech that need to be tested. They're simply integers that can be changed at any point. Currently, players lose ships most of the time due to bugs and the game client crashing. At least for me, user error rates are pretty low and most of my ships die or become inaccessible because of glitches or my client crashing or an invisible asteroid that I run into or whatever. If CIG wanted to spend a year with all dev hands on deck fixing Star Citizen's bugs and problems to the point where 99% of the deaths are user error, then I'm game to move forward with a new punishment system. But until that happens, punishing players for things that are out of their control is absolutely crazy, especially when
this is such a difficult subject. A big part of me agrees. And the other part of me is the punishments aren't that bad unless it's a really big ship. And I just don't think you can go, yes, the game is really exciting. All these changes to salvage are so great. This, that, and the other thing with the gameplay side of things, and not welcome the possibility of risk for dying. Because in so many situations, the risk of death is why nothing matters in the game. So while I absolutely agree that I don't think most deaths are caused by bugs. I think they're caused by user error and just bad piloting or whatever, right? I do think you do die from bugs more than we should. But it's, when I die, it's my fault 99% of the time. There's very few situations where I've bugged out and died from flying. I think from a new player standpoint, that's where I think we have a bit of an argument here. It's crazy from that level, where a new player is going to feel punished, and I think that that's sort of the problem, and that's the line of thinking I would take, is that the new player is going to be really turned away from the game. And yeah, it's my fault for dying getting into the cuddy seat. Of course not. But how many times have I died getting in the cuddy seat, and how many times have I died to an NPC because I wasn't flying correctly? Or how many times have I died to a turret at SPK because I was flying too slow, right? Those aren't bugs, man. Those are choices you make, and you die for those reasons. And I am way more for it being a gold sink than a time sink. That's my big thing. I think it should be significantly raised claim, like insurance claim speed up time, like cost, rather than the time slowing down, because we need gold sinks in the game. There needs to be risk, and I don't think the risk should be your limited time of a play session, at least not at this stage. So while I agree with Level here on the aspects of, hey, it's not ready for this, I also think we have to start ripping off the Band-Aid and creating risk and rewards for our actions in the game as much as possible, and start reminding players that they're playing a video game, and reminding players what Star Citizen's going to be in the future. Because I think a lot of the community is just getting so entitled to this feeling that they are not going to explode, or feeling that they're entitled to just be able to play the game however they want, whenever they want, and that's just not going to be a thing. So I think the money sinks are important. The time is the issue. It's not time for the time sink. It's time for the money sinks. Is my argument on that one.
And it's coming alongside a new player experience system to get people into the game. It's like, welcome to Star Citizen, here's your prison sentence and extremely punishing insurance claim times because you don't understand the game or it's super buggy.
Yeah,
Plus,
I think it's
there's
super
really
problematic
nothing
for
to
new
do in the
people.
game right now while waiting for an insurance claim. Players are literally just going to log off when they lose their ship. Anyway, dumb decisions aside, there's also new tidbits of the new player experience showing up in the UI, with key binding markers showing the possible interactions with systems. Now, this implementation is only a small part of the final package, but it's one of the new features coming with that whole onboarding
I think it's the
experience.
biggest part.
It also seems to be injecting just a little bit of the new interaction UI that was demoed at last year's CitizenCon, though it's very limited. Now, one of the things I didn't get to test yet with 3.19 was the new Ghost Hollow PvP and PvE missions. I'll be checking those out later, but the whole concept of them does sound pretty cool. There's also a new...
It's cool. It was bugged yesterday. It's fixed today, where it was like constantly spawning NPC ships, but we were like using those to defend ourselves with. It was a really good experience, but lots of bugs with it still. And yeah, it's like A2, you die to A2 bombs inside of the building and stuff, inside the reclaimer. So it's just very A2able and not super defendable. So you have to be, if you want to do this, you need to be a organized group. for sure. And it's good to have that content in the game, but the payout is absolutely not worth it. The best payout you can get is 100 credits per second. And yeah, in an hour, you're not making a lot.
Density manager that should remove ships, items, dead bodies, and stuff from missions or station locations. Obviously, testing this on the first day won't really give me an idea of how well it's working, but I'm sure the results will become apparent in the coming days. And it's good to see the tools for managing persistence coming online, since in many ways, persistence made the game worse with all the junk and space collision buildup.
But
there's now signs for Invictus launch week up at ArcCorp, showing that it starts on the 19th. So I think that means that this patch is supposed to drop by then. This could be a rough convention if the general stability of the game isn't improved.
This is going to be a rough 3.19. The fact that we're in the 3.19 PTU, I mean, we're nearly done with this video. LevelCap hasn't mentioned mining. Mining is the biggest, like, most monumental change to a system that I think the devs have ever done. It has really completely changed the way you experience it, and it's not even in this patch technically, right? We're a couple weeks away, and we can't even give feedback on the feature yet because it's not even implemented in the game properly. This is going to be really bad.
Even while playing on the PTU, I ran into bugs like not being able to open the hangar doors and elevators needing to be double.
Yeah, the known bug list is smaller. You know why? Because the bugs that are still there, they just took them out without even marking them as fixed. Minables not being able to be mined because they were invisible, that was in the last patch notes. Today's patch notes, not there. No fix for it, still broken. So you can make the known issues list smaller to make it look however you want, but the known issues list is significantly long. It's just not listed there.
Click just to get them to open their doors. At scale, these issues will likely just get worse. On the bright side, the UI did feel much more responsive compared to 3.18, so hopefully that's a fix and not just the fact that the PTU has a reduced player count. Star Citizen has been an absolute mess since the launch of 3.18. The state of the game has wavered between sort of playable and buggy to completely unplayable, and patch 3.19 isn't guaranteed to fix that, but the devs do seem confident in their ability to fix things. Eventually. It's mainly an issue with scalability and bugs that only crop up when lots of people are online, which makes troubleshooting the problems much more challenging. But apparently the data that they've gathered from Xenothreat has been extremely useful, and I'm hoping that it leads to some major stability improvements soon. For me, the current state of the game has really been a hype killer. It's hard to get excited about the updates coming with 3.19 when I know that it's going to be surrounded by a ton of jank and buggy interactions and other quality.
I mean, that's, in a lot of ways, that's Star Citizen. Like, a little bit of jank is okay. Not being able to log in, not being able to mine at all when that's like the major feature, like those are problematic. But bugs are, it's just, that's not changing, right? But what he's defining as bugs is just like unplayability. And that is what is it's sucking the life out of the excitement for the game. I agree.
Of life downgrades. I am still really excited to see if the Bengal carrier is actually going to show up at ArcCorp for Invictus launch week. That's probably one of the updates that I'm most hyped for, because if we get some interior of that,
he wants
it could be
stability.
Extremely cool. Beyond that, though, I've just got my fingers crossed for some major stability improvements coming down the road. Hopefully they don't take too long. What are your experiences with Star Citizen recently? I'd love to hear about it in the comments. And next up, check out this video showing off all of the Star Citizen's amazing handheld weapons and their details and functionality.
Yeah, I mean, my experiences on this one are 3.19. I'm a lot of new shinies, and they're the kind of shinies that I like. So I'm really having a hard time even thinking about going back to 3.18 live. But I don't want to burn myself out in 3.19. I want to be excited for 3.18 live, but I did that with 3.18, and then I wasn't able to play it. So I want to enjoy it while it works, and the salvage missions have been incredible. What I've seen from mining is absolutely game-changing, amazing from every aspect, from a solo miner to a group of 10. It is super awesome. And I am so excited for it. I know Level had actually reached out to me and was like, yo, when these mining changes come in, we're going to have to go do some mining together. So absolutely, I cannot wait. And I'm so excited. From what little I saw today in mining, I am ultra hyped. So the one thing he didn't really touch on in this video is the thing that I think is the best. And hopefully they get that in and fix some of the issues around it. There are some major like game loop issues and major bugs that are preventing it from being good. So hopefully they get those nailed down in the 2 weeks we have before Invictus launch week, but we'll have to see. So thank you, Level, for a really great video as always, and I hope you guys enjoyed the ride of watching it with me.